Hello and welcome to the 2024 Spring LCS Retrospective. I'm Mark Zimmerman, LCS Commissioner, and in this video we will do a deep dive into viewership, community conversations, and some lessons heading into summer. Before we dive in though, a round of shoutouts are in order. First off, to the LCS pro players and teams. We threw not only a historic number of changes at them, but ones completely unique to the LCS. They met all of these changes with an incredibly positive attitude and worked alongside us. The LCS intends to stay innovating, and knowing that our pros can meet these changes with an open mind is why we are able to do so much for fans. At the start of this year, we internally listed every reason that a fan might have stopped watching in 2023, and it was a long list, which included things like the departure of historic organizations and players, unable to watch on weekdays, and many more. Our job for this year was simple: try to make a bigger list of reasons for fans to tune in. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who worked on executing that list, including engineers, comp ops, tech ops, comms, creative, broadcast, talent, features, partnerships, publishing, events, facilities, and many others who worked every single week on the LCS. Finally, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. We hear you, and your feedback helps us build a better product. Now, without further ado, onto the biggest talking points. The main broadcast AMA year over year is up 10%, which is the first year over year growth since 2020 COVID summer spike. If that sounds like a lot of gibberish to you, let me break it down. Average minute audience is a check of how many people are watching at any minute across the broadcast, all averaged out. And year over year is just comparing 2024 to 2023, and it's the main way that most people tend to evaluate viewership growth. While it is a good baseline, it can't ignore any nuance or context across the year. Usually the AMA will take the full broadcast of the LCS, meaning the pre-show and post-show numbers included. However, our broadcast is optimized for matches and breaks. In 2024, the LCS shifted from 5 games to 4 games in a single day, accompanied by faster transition times between matches. This means that the percentage of our show that is pre and post-show proportionally increased in 2024, which can deflate the actual viewership numbers compared to previous years. The LCS did grow year over year for the full broadcast as well, but even more so when comparing the actual viewership during gameplay and breaks. Now, year over year is not the only way to slice the data though, and that's why we're looking at split over split as well. It's no secret that 2023 summer was a very rough split for the LCS in a number of ways, which unfortunately manifested in record lows for viewership. We don't want to compare 2024 spring to just 2023 spring because it also needed to rebound from the previous summer. Now, spring typically outperforms summer in viewership, so it's a question of by how much. The main broadcast split over split AMA for spring 2024 is the largest growth in the franchise era, both in percentage, viewership, and raw AMA. So safe to say from a viewership perspective, it was a pretty good split. We take this to mean that the week over week experience for fans was a big step up. And we aren't done yet, as we want to continue the LCS's growth to previous year's viewership. We'll talk more about viewership in a little bit, but it's not the end all be all. There is another topic that matters a ton: sentiment. Viewership is great, but if fans hated the product, we would not be satisfied. Overall, the sentiment for this split is quite positive, but there were a few pain points that fans voiced, and we don't want to turn a blind eye to them. One in particular is the break weeks between week 4 and week 5. And I'm sorry, but I have to set the record straight. Lots of people called it a 3-week break, but it is a 2-week break. Normally, we broadcast on Saturday and Sunday, and there are 5 days until our next show. We inserted 14 more days in there. So if we were on this Saturday, we were off this one, and then we came back here. From a scheduling perspective, that is a 2-week break. I understand that it's 19 days off, and 19 is close to 21, and it feels like 3 weeks. I understand the feeling, but from a communication and scheduling perspective, it was a 2-week break. Joking aside, the fact that the break weeks held stable viewership numbers was a big win for us in terms of maintaining fan interest. However, fans did not like the break, which was anticipated when we were planning the LCS schedule. And now that the split is done, it's worth revisiting our initial reasoning. First, we wanted our league to start near the regular season games of other regions so that LCS fans weren't like Squidward in that meme watching everyone else run around and have fun. Second, we wanted our pro players to be playing competitively in the lead up to MSI and for fans to be watching that build up. Finishing too early, again, kind of risked Squidwardification. Third, we considered other formats to elongate the season, but we wanted to minimize the impact to collect data on the other big changes around the live patch and reduced transition times. Any format tweaks that were considered had to be weighed against viewership fatigue, the risk of the data, as well as budget. Fourth and finally, we wanted to avoid overlapping with VCT, especially during our playoff qualifications and the playoffs themselves. When we were considering all of these options, the break was the best one available, and now that we have the data back, we would argue it still is. In a situation where sentiment is inevitably impacted, we will always work to find ways to minimize those pain points for our fans, pro players, and the studio team. Now, that fourth reason in particular has been a bit of a sticking point for some, so I would love to elaborate more. One of the first big bets that we made in 2024 was being live at the right time is more important than being live at the right place. Now, this does not mean that location or stage does not matter, but when forced to choose between one or the other, we believe it's more impactful for fans to be on at the right time. Our primary goal then was moving back to weekends, which in turn created some weekends of overlap with VCT. This change came quite late into 2024's planning when VCT Americas had locked almost all aspects of their show. And now, while the LCS and VCT are two different products, the shows do share many of the same staff on the back end. VCT is also live in multiple languages in studio, which means that their product is a more complex one to adjust both spatially and technically. As the ones who were shifting to cause this overlap, the LCS was more than happy to pilot the new space. Fortunately, the overlap weekend went well. The LCS face-off show was enjoyable for many fans. Neither VCT Americas nor LCS suffered any technical issues, and viewership was good for both products. Overall, we had some big wins this split, which indicates that we are on the right path, but there are always things to improve on. One area that we fell short was our peak concurrent users, which was down 20% year over year. PCU is a good measure of more casual interest in the product and who is willing to tune in for the big moments. While PCU was actually higher week over week than 2023 and rivaled 2022, PCU did not spike in playoffs as much as it typically does. Our working thesis is that while the changes we implemented this split created a watchable and refreshing broadcast for existing fans, we didn't emphasize attracting new and lapsed viewers enough. As we look forward to summer then, we have two main initiatives. We'll be keeping this fans first mentality as a goal, continuing to innovate and iterate on the LCS in ways that existing fans will appreciate. The other can broadly be defined as outreach efforts to connect and market to new and churned fans. I'm sure you'd like more concrete plans around both of those, but we're saving them until summer split after MSI. You can expect something similar to the spring LCS address video then. Hopefully, this video gives you insight and confidence into how we're thinking about 2024 for the direction of the product moving forward. We'll see you back here soon, and until then, make sure to support FlyQuest and Team Liquid as they smack EU down again at MSI.